What's up, awesome YouTubers? RHINE1988 or Justin back here to do a video for you all. And this is a kind of a review series that I'm going to start. And everybody knows these movies, but I love this franchise and I would love to focus on each one of these movies, revisit some of them, and talk about them. And that is the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. I love pretty much all of them. There's one movie as I go on with this series that I'm not crazy about, to each their own, but Freddy's Dead is not one of my favorites. That's actually my least favorite of the franchise. But again, I either really enjoy or love the rest of the movies. Most of them I love. Like, I'm biased. I love the franchise, and I love, Freddy Krueger and pretty much all these movies. So I find a lot of them entertaining. Even like there's moments in Freddy's Dead that I don't think it's the worst thing ever. It's not, again, a movie that I enjoy, but there are things about the movie that once I get to that film, that I will talk about and, give you my things I love about it and a lot of things I don't love about it. However, we're starting off with one of the best in the franchise. It's actually not my favorite, though. And that is the original Nightmare on Elm Street. My favorite being Wes Craven's New Nightmare. However, this is a very close second. And it might go back and forth, when I rewatch the movies, which one is my favorite, which one is not, which one's a close second. That's what I was talking about, or that's what I meant. However, make no mistake, Nightmare on Elm Street, the original from 1984, is one of the greatest horror movies of all time. And it's one of the greatest movies of all time. Like, I just absolutely love this movie. In fact, it was also the first horror movie that I ever saw as a kid, and it terrified me so much that I didn't watch it again until I was 16 years old. So let's go back in time. Let's go to a 5-year-old Justin living in Kentucky. I remember this pretty vividly. I was walking in the living room, and my older sister's friend had brought over A Nightmare on Elm Street 1 and 2. And I remember sitting behind the couch, like looking, from behind the couch, kind of glancing at the TV, and you have that opening of like Freddy making his glove, and Tina's nightmare, her first nightmare before she dies, and she's in the boiler room, and you don't see Freddy, but he's there. Obviously you see his presence, you see his shadow, you see him try to attack Tina, but you don't see his face. And I remember thinking, this was something different. I've never seen something like this before. And then you jump forward to Tina's death, and it terrified me. Like, it freaked me out. And as a 5-year-old, like, I'm sitting behind this couch, and I'm just, like, too terrified to move. So I watched the entire movie, plus A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, behind a couch. When I wasn't supposed to. When I was 5 years old again, and I could tell you right now that this is the first scary movie that scared me. Like, this is the first movie that had an impact on me, that terrified me. This was 93, so at the time the movie was 9 years old. So just absolutely terrified me. And again, I would see Freddy Krueger through like posters, and I would see glances of the movies on TV, but I never watched them. I would always turn the channel, and it wasn't until I was 16 years old that I watched the movie on VHS, and I rented it from a local video store when I was visiting my mom, because my mom and dad, they're separate. They've been separate for over 20 plus years, but I was visiting her, and we rented A Nightmare on Elm Street on VHS. This is not that VHS tape. This is part of the awesome box set. But yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street, rented this. And I loved it. I rewatched it and I loved the movie. It is still one of those movies, though, when I watch it now, it is pretty terrifying. Like, there's really good suspense in this. There's some eerie moments. Rather, it's the way that, Wes Craven directed the movie, Robert Englund's performance, or even that iconic music that it's just a very creepy and effective film. And, you can look at some of the practical effects, like, Marge being pulled through the door at the end of the film and know that that is completely fake. You could tell it's fake. It's so cheesy and kind of bad, but for the time, like, that was pretty crazy to see that. Like, if you watch it on VHS or if you watch it on, like, even a DVD release like that, it looks pretty cool. Like, as a kid, I was like, wow. Like, even as a 16-year-old, I was like, this is neat how they did that. Now it's cheesy and you can, see how bad it looks. But, for the time, it was pretty amazing. So, I love this movie so much. Robert Englund, first of all, is Freddy Krueger. We'll talk about the remake later on. But he is Freddy. Robert is Freddy. Like, without him playing Freddy in all 7, 8 movies that he's been in, it just wouldn't be the same. Like, if he had only done the first one, which almost happened in Nightmare on Elm Street 2, the franchise would not be the same. Like, we would not have this franchise. I believe we would not have it. I think if they went in a different direction in part 2 and, just completely, scrap the idea of Robert being in the movie, maybe we wouldn't have a franchise, because I don't think it would work without him. But Nightmare on Elm Street, he's fantastic in it. I love Heather Langenkamp's performance as Nancy. I actually think she's better in Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Like, that performance is so strong, but I'll talk about that when I get to that movie later on in this series of videos. But she's great in the movie as our final girl. Then I love, like, the cast all around. Like, Amanda Weiss, she, as Tina, is one of my favorite characters in, the horror movie franchise, or the genre. Horror movie history. Like, I love that character. And, I still watch this movie today, and I think, man, like, this would be so cool if she would have lived longer, because you are invested in her. Like, she's the first character you see on screen. And, if you had never seen this movie before, or, had never seen her death scene, didn't know anything about it, you would think that she was going to be your final girl. And they played it off like that, like when she's first on screen. However, she dies 20 minutes into the movie, maybe even less than that. Like, that is just so crazy. Like, there's been, movies where they've been able to pull that off. Wes Craven did it twice with Amanda, and then with Drew with, Scream with Casey Becker, or Baker. Like, that character, when you first watch Scream, you're like, you know nothing about the movie. You haven't seen, Drew Barrymore's death, and then when you watch the first 10 minutes, she's only in those scenes and then dies. Like, he did it twice. Like, Wes Craven was genius on how he was able to not spoil any of that when the movies got originally released. And so that was pretty awesome. And then back then, too, you really didn't have a lot of the internet. So you didn't, know about spoilers or anything. So you walked into these movies and you were just shocked when, like, Casey Becker from Scream or when Tina from Nightmare on Elm Street were killed off. Then you got Rod, and you got Glenn, played by a young Johnny Depp. And again, when I was a kid, being that 5-year-old, I remember watching Glenn's death and how he was just sucked into the bed. And the only thing you see is, just gallons and gallons of blood being sprayed on the ceiling and all over the room. You never saw his body. There's that deleted scene out there, which is not great, but, like, I love what we got in the theatrical cut, where you just know that, like, Freddy tore him apart, and the only thing you see is that blood spraying out of the bed. And it's still one of the best and iconic scenes in any horror movie or any movie in general. Like, I love how they filmed it. I love the making of it. You know, talking about, you know, Tina's death and, you know, the rotating room where she's being dragged by Freddy up on the wall. Like, that is terrifying still today. And then again, you have Glenn's death, and you see the blood like spraying up on the wall, and how that was a rotating room. You know, it's amazing what they were able to do back then with practical stuff, and nowadays that would just be CGI stuff. Like, I miss days like this where, yes, it was harder to shoot. Yes, there was a big process with it, but that is the stuff that me and so many other people remember when you first watched this movie. You know, other things I love, you know, iconic moments in the film, you know, talking about, you know, Tina's death, the alley scene, how they shot all of that. That's still scary today. Like, I still like talk to the screen and I'm like, Tina, do not go out there, because you know what's going to happen to her. And it's just so creepy and so eerie. Wes Craven, you know, talking about him, you know, he had done, you know, previous movies before this, like Last House on the Left, Hills of Eyes, Deadly Blessing. I think he did Hills of Eyes Part 2, but it didn't come out until after Nightmare. And Swamp Thing. Like, those, you know, he was an established director. Like, he had directed things. But this was one of his big hits back then. And it's still probably his most memorable movie that he directed. And, you know, Wes was one of my favorite directors. He's still one of my favorite directors, even though he passed away 10 years ago, or, you know, I think August will be 10 years since he passed away. You know, his films live on, and this movie lives on, and I love that so much. Again, truly just an eerie and terrifying movie. You know, go back to, you know, Nancy as a character, and Nancy is one of the strongest final girls that we have in any movie franchise. You know, she's up there with Laurie Strode, Sidney Prescott, so many great final girls, Julie James. Nancy's one of the best, and I still love the ending where she confronts Freddy finally, and she just says, you're nothing, and is able to defeat him, and he can't get her. So yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street, just an amazing movie. I'm sure you all have seen it. You all know that. It's an amazing movie. It's one of the greatest horror movies of all time. And, you know, it's going to be talked about even when I pass away years from now. Like, hopefully not anytime soon. But, you know, even when I'm gone, I feel like this movie will be talked about from generations and generations to come, because the movie is almost 41 years old. And it's still talked about today. There's still people watching this movie for the first time. And I absolutely love it. It is such an awesome horror movie, and just an awesome movie in general. Again, if you want to know about like filmmaking, or if you're diving into filmmaking, you can look at this movie and watch some of the cool behind the scenes, either on YouTube or on your old DVDs or Blu-rays or whatnot. And you could see like how Wes Craven and the crew made this movie, and how, you know, they went different ways of filming shots and scenes, and it's just amazing. Like, I that's the part of filmmaking I love. I love how, you know, John Carpenter made Halloween, and how he had to pick up the leaves every time. The cast and crew had to pick up the leaves every time they finished a shot on Halloween, because they needed the leaves. It's similar to this. Like, there's just moments that you watch this movie and you're like, you know, this is movie magic right here, because this is the stuff that myself and so many of you and so many people, you'll remember this movie because of what they had to do to make it work. And I love it. so much. So much. So, Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984. This is a perfect horror movie, in my opinion. Again, you got some campiness there with, Marge being pulled into the front door at the end of the movie. But next to that, every scene works in this movie. Everything looks great. You could probably nitpick at some stuff if you want, but I won't with this movie because I just adore this movie so much. I love this movie. Again, a movie that terrified me as a kid is one of my favorite movies now. I've had the pleasure to meet so many people from this movie. I wish I have got to have met John Saxon. Like, that's somebody I regret not meeting still today. Like, he was at shows and I didn't meet him, and then he passed away, and it just broke my heart that I never got to meet him. Obviously, Wes Craven, didn't get to meet him. He never did conventions that I remember, that I know of. But it would have been amazing to meet him. But I've met Heather Langenkamp so many times. I've met Amanda so many times. They're total sweethearts. I love them. Ronnie Blakely played Marge in this movie. Nancy's mom, I've met her. Total sweetheart. I did a photo op with Robert Englund, so I've got to meet him, but I didn't get to talk to him. That whole day was just terrible because, they really just wanted you in and out. You couldn't shake his hand. You couldn't say anything to him. And it wasn't Robert. It was just the way that everything was handled at that one convention. So I would love to meet him again, get some stuff signed, talk to him. I hear he loves talking to his fans. I love that 40 plus years later. I mean, he's been working in this industry for a very long time, but 40 plus years later since this movie came out, he's still doing the conventions and he's still talking to people. And, he has talked about this movie so many times, again, 40 plus years, but he still talks to people. And I love that. That is amazing. And he's now finally getting his Hollywood Walk of Fame, his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, I think in October, I think Halloween Day. And it's about time that Mr. Englund got that. So I love this movie. This is the VHS tape. This is the old snapper case DVD, which, is just... it's so fun to look at something like this now and you think, wow, look at where physical media is. But this was the ultimate stuff right here. So this is from that VHS box set that I have, and this is from the DVD box set. And those two box sets are still the best releases of this franchise that we have so far. And then I have a really nice steelbook of A Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one. This is an image of, I think, Freddy versus Jason, so it's not Freddy in the original, but it's still nice. It's still pretty cool. I think this was a Best Buy exclusive one, and, it has some great bonus features. There's the inside there, so that's pretty cool. Again, it's Nightmare on Elm Street, Even something basic not basic like this, I don't want to down this, but even something simple like this is still cool because it's the movie. And then, lastly, as far as standalone releases go, the 4K from last year, which looks and sounds amazing. I think that's the best the movie's looked since its original release and possibly the VHS tape. And this is awesome. Again, Nightmare on Elm Street, we're getting a 4K, standalone 4K. And now we're going to get a box set this year, and I'm so excited for that. I think this is one of the reasons why I want to do a series of Nightmare on Elm Street videos, talk about each movie, and, talk about the first time I saw them, talk about, why I love them, or just talk about the movies in general and give you my opinions on these movies, or talk about my history with these movies. I just want to dive into this. And so, what better way to start than with the original Nightmare on Elm Street? If you're one of the rare few people that have not seen this movie, obviously watch it. Watch this movie. It's going to be a perfect movie to watch in October. I'm thinking about watching it tonight. It's been on my mind the past couple days. And I'm so excited that we're getting a 4K box set. Hopefully it is a proper box set, and they do it right. But Nightmare on Elm Street, let me know your opinion on this. When did you first see this movie? Has this movie had an impact on you? Talk about your favorite scenes. Talk about your favorite characters. Just let me know what you think of this movie. Is it a movie you haven't seen? If it's a rare, it could be a rare thing where somebody hasn't seen this movie. And if you've never seen Nightmare on Elm Street, you need to go watch it. So get past like the ending scene with Marge being sucked through the window, and love this movie because it is a scary movie. It is eerie, and it holds up almost 41 plus years, or 41 years. And I love it so much. So I really appreciate you all watching. I hope you enjoyed this kind of retrospective Nightmare on Elm Street video, and I will, talk about the rest in the future. So, as always, y'all are awesome. Y'all rock. In with the positive, out with the negative. I'll talk to y'all later. And much love to you all. Always be yourself because you're amazing and you are beautiful. Bye, everybody.